My favorite guitar player is Django Reinhardt. He's the best, period. Everything he did with two fingers. He had these two fingers, all he had. And he was in a fire when he was 16, and the two small fingers on his left hand were burned so badly that they were useless. But he played more with those two fingers than anyone has played since. I play New Oz and a couple of more Django songs every show. I heard one of the Little Willies in Nora Jones' band saying that I played like Django with one finger. So that's about the nicest thing anyone has ever said about my playing, just to think for a minute that I might be half as good as Django. Makes my head a little bigger. Thank you very much. That was really what I was striving for, that tone that Django got. He did it with just these fingers. The method of playing and the tone and the speed was incredible. I think he was the best guitar player ever.
On, I was going to be a pirate and a musician.
Now, you took up guitar too, right?
Oh yeah, I could flat pick my way through 2 hours of music.
Yeah.
Uncle Manny told me before I was a teenager, if you can play 2 hours of music on a guitar, you'll always be able to get dinner. Right? Yeah. I can go to any restaurant now, and I can play some serious Django Reinhardt jazz for 2 hours.
Yeah.
That's what I specified to my New York City guitar teacher about 15 years ago, Jeff. Jeff is probably listening. Jeff, how are you?
Is he around?
Oh, I can play, you know how Woody Allen always has Django Reinhardt kind of music,
sure. Yeah,
jazz?
yeah.
It's floating gypsy kind of jazz,
yeah.
you know, and I sat
String
down.
doodling.
I said, that's the kind of music I want to learn. Like Sean Penn played in Sweet Lowdown. I
great.
can play almost the entire album.
I love that movie.
It's Bucky Pizzarelli played the guitars on that. Those big fat body, dreamy, kind of almost tropical sound. And I can do a whole happy hour for you.
Oh,
and I'll play for dinner and drinks. Hold on. Top shelf drinks.
Okay, you got it. Did you play?
My second record is a guitarist, but one who had quite an influence on my playing, although he is not a classical player. He is the great French gypsy guitarist Django Reinhardt. And my father collected all his old 78s, and so his music was the very first music that I heard. And there was a lot worse music that I could have heard, because Django at his best, I think, is a phenomenal musician. It just so happens that there's one lovely record of Django not only playing the guitar, but also playing the violin, which I think is a very unique record.
Yes, I had no idea he could play the violin.
Well, nor did I. But apparently before, he had this terrible accident with his left hand.
Yes.
And the third and fourth fingers were paralyzed. He could hardly use those. But apparently he did actually play the violin before the accident, but he gave up the violin, and then somebody lent him a violin for this recording.
And then I found Gypsy Jazz. I refound it because I used to love listening to it, but it just seemed like a very unattainable art form. For those of you that don't know it, it's an old, like 30s, late 20s sort of form of jazz. So these guys, like Django Reinhardt, developed this rhythm style called the pump, and they play to emulate the big dance. I found that to be so intriguing, and once I got into the scale types, such as the minor 9. My bastardized version of harmonic minor. So point first is that find your guilty pleasure, so to speak. Because you never really know what it's going to be, but different things can add. And I found the techniques, the scales, just the whole, the nuance, the detail about it to be very useful.
So I liked him, and that started me to liking jazz a bit. And then later, a friend of mine that was in the Army, when he came back to Mississippi where I was, he brought some records by a fellow that I'd never heard of called Django Reinhardt. So he said, I know you like guitar, so I brought a couple of records back, and I want you to listen to this fella. And then I heard something that sounded like this. So clear, you know, much clearer than what I'm playing. And I fell in love with him. That really blew my mind. And from there until this day, those people that I've mentioned have been my idols. Now, but I think what caused me to play the
So they put me on this big, huge, giant guillotine press. So as I'm pushing the metal through into the press, the machine came down on my hand. And the action of pulling my hand back quick, I pulled the ends of the fingers off. I mean, that was it then for me. I thought, oh, God. And I went to see various specialists, and they said, you might as well pack up, you're never going to be able to play. The firm where I worked, the manager of the firm came round to my house to see how I was, and he said, I bought you an EP round, will you play it? I went, oh no. I said, I don't want to listen to music now. I was really depressed. The last thing I wanted to do was listen to a guitar player, Django Reinhardt. He said, no, he said, put it on, and it's interesting, the story. And when I was first introduced to listening to his stuff, I couldn't believe it, because I liked bluesy stuff and jazz. And when I heard his Gypsy Jazz, it was really brilliant. And especially having lost the use of two fingers, it was just amazing. I could relate to that after me doing the same sort of thing, you know, damaging two fingers. And it really inspired me to get to learn to play more by, you know, the use of, by doing something with my fingers. So I made these sort of tips for them, and so I could play.
Guys, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, let us know what you think in the comments. Check out the podcast. We've got a really cool podcast that we do, some really cool musicians. It's really fun to watch or listen to. We've got more video lessons coming up, so share them with your pals, and we'll see you for the next one. Cheers.